signing the books over by where the refreshments work. So she'll be at that wooden table there that has all the books, etc., etc. The nice thing is that in between here, where she's speaking, and there, where she's signing, is the counter where you can buy out all of her books. The hard part is, it's very tempting to tell her congratulations and good job and let me chat with you for a while, but we gotta focus. It'll be buy all the books, she'll sign it, and then compliments there. So my name is Rosie. I'm the events coordinator here at Readers. I think one of the treats about coming back to your hometown and working in a community that does have people your parents' age and working with people your parents' age is that you know what, in some communities, people look at me and they go, oh, you're so old. I don't know if I believe this kid. I find that such a gift for me. I can look at people and go like, no, there's a lot ahead of all of us. There's a lot of good ahead of all of us. And if we start learning about that now, then we have a guidebook for the future. And that's what Lori's book is really here for. It's for the idea of growing old isn't something scary that you need to do 25 skincare routines for and you feel awful about your life. Instead, it's something that you can find within yourself, the magic of yes, which just makes it a really great manual for both people my age and both everybody's age. And it just is a really lovely way to share wisdom. And Lori's going to tell you much more wisdom than I can in the introduction. So you can give her a round of applause.
Wow, I want to hire her. And she can just do my introductions. I thought that was great. Thank you so much, Rosie. So, these days, so oftentimes, it feels like when you wake up in the morning and you really don't even want to look at your phone or look at the news, right? I mean, it's like, no, I don't want to hear any more of this stuff. And it's like, I don't want to live like that. I want to be able to say yes to something. And one of the things that I'm really enjoying, that my readers are telling me, is that they're finding something to say yes to. And really what so often it ends up being is what their struggles and their challenges really have told them and taught them, and what it carries, those challenges and struggles. And I'll tell you a little bit about myself. Families can be difficult. We all know that on both sides of it, right? And I grew up in a difficult family. My mother was religiously delusional, and I'm not just casually saying that. My mother was convinced that her rebellious daughter, me, was possessed by the devil. And so she spent my childhood trying to get rid of me, to exorcise me, to get rid of that devil in me. And she even went to she wasn't having a lot of success. And when I was 16, she convinced my dad to commit me to the nut house. And let me just read a little bit about that wonderful occasion. Dad left me at the nut house, perched on the hillside in beautiful Golden Valley. Soon I had no idea how long I'd been there. I could barely shuffle 1 foot ahead of the other. My mind was fuzzy, like scratchy steel wool, confused and disoriented. They gave me little paper cups filled with strange-looking pills. Just take a sip of water and swallow them down, dear. Well, one day, my feet felt really heavy and my legs tingled, and I could barely move. I hyperventilated and blacked out. When I woke up, 2 girls were sitting on my bed. Little Donna was moaning. Tomorrow they're going to shock me again. I begged them no more, but they won't listen. They said if I refuse, they're going to do a lobotomy. I mean, this is, what was it, who flew over the cuckoo's nest days? I mean, that's how old I am. They said if I refuse, they're gonna do a lobotomy. I'm scared, what should I do? And that got my attention. What the heck was going on? I slowly connected the dots to figure out why I felt so muddled. It was the pills. The nurse came in again with her little paper cups. I said to myself, do not swallow those pills. I hid them in my cheek, took a sip of water, swallowed, and when the nurse left, I spit them into a Kleenex and hid them in my pocket. And that was a moment of clarity for me. And that was, do not swallow the pills. And that really served me well. I mean, not only did I get out, obviously, but it was, I would have to say that that was probably my first real life lesson that I was able to carry with me. And so then, one thing after another, the condition of my discharge was that I would never live in the same house as my mother. Well, that was fine with me. And I ended up out in San Francisco. It was in 1966, right in the middle of the free love, Haight-Ashbury era, and I lived right there. But fortunately, I was not going to take any drugs. I was really scared. So during my time in San Francisco, while living in a barren bedroom with a shared toilet down the hall, an epiphany left me gobsmacked. I was looking out over the rooftops of the neighboring row houses one night, feeling cold and lonely, when I realized there was an advantage to having been emotionally and mentally gutted in the nut house and forbidden to live at home. Since I was an empty shell, I could fill myself up the way I wanted. I could determine my values, my belief system, and what I was going to accomplish in life. It was up to me to become who I wanted to be. And I would have to say that was my second life lesson. That nobody was going to, do anything. That I had choice, and it was up to me. Well, to fast forward a little bit to get to the point I'm eventually going to make, is that I got lucky. I was lucky in that even though I had a marginal mother, I had good nutrition, I was smart, I had a lot of drive, and I started a business, a high-tech business, back in the 70s, and right when the personal computer came out. And it was great. It was a good niche market. I did well, and I sold it when I was 49. Now, along the way, I made some mistakes. I got married, got divorced, got married, got divorced. But I had 3 kids, and but I didn't really know how to be a mother because I really didn't have a very good role model. Well, during the period of the time from 49 to 57, I really worked hard at being retired. And I just failed. I mean, there is no way in hell I could play golf. It does not work for me. And I tried to be a follower, and I failed at being a follower. I just know how to be the boss. And, but I traveled a lot. And in the middle of Africa, in the Sahara Desert, I came across this little girl that came up to me, and she's hot and tattered and tired, and I thought, well, what is she begging for? Because there's no stores around. I mean, if I gave her money, there's nothing that you're gonna buy. And you know what it was? She wanted my water bottle. That's all she wanted, was my water bottle. And there was another flash of clarity. And that little girl was the same age as my granddaughter. Ella, probably 6. And I thought, that could be Ella. Ella did nothing right to be born my granddaughter. And this little girl did nothing wrong to be born in a disease-ridden life. And I started thinking, well, what if I could do something to get the flies off that little girl's face? What if I could do something that would solve the problem of water and women's empowerment and environment and I thought, well, why not? I'm an entrepreneur. I had a successful tech business in the United States. I'm sure I can build something in Africa. And so I did. And I formed a nonprofit, and I moved to Ethiopia because that's where the most marginalized tribes lived. And if I was going to do something, I might as well do it for the ones that need it the most, right? Good Lord, there's a cycle here that you can tell. Kind of an overachieving cycle. And I was so blessed because I started working with the tribes of South Omo. And I don't know if any of you are familiar, but you probably have seen stories in the National Geographic. And you see the tribal people. Well, my tribal people, the women wear goat skin. The men, if they wear anything, wear dirty shorts. The women's hair is twisted in ringlets with the silly clay and butter mixed together. And so then that drips down in their face. And I ended up building an organization. We had about 50 people, and we worked with over 100,000 people in Southwest Ethiopia. Well, the offices were up in Addis Ababa, the capital, because that's where there's resource. And it was really tough. I mean, the noise, the harassment, the fact that you can't understand really what people are talking about. And they're trying to speak English because I really wasn't fluent in Amharic. And I would get home at night and all I could think about was getting a glass of wine, and sitting in a chair and reading. Well, then the electricity would go out. So I was left with 3 little candles sitting on my mantle, and all I could do was think, because I couldn't read, and there's no television, there's nothing else. All I could do was think. And I started thinking about that little girl. And I started thinking about those women that I was working with down in South Omo, and about my different challenges and my different struggles, and the guilt I was carrying because I felt I had been a subpar mom instead of the super mom that I had wanted to be. And I realized, what? Those challenges and those struggles really are the keys to finding wisdom. And then it really becomes, so how do you harvest it? How do you draw out those lessons? And how then do you put them into action? Well, being an old business person, I'm very familiar with business models. And that's how I ran my businesses. I had models, I followed the models. So I started thinking, what I need is a personal happiness model. And it really came down to one little word eventually. And that little word is dream. And it's not a fluffy dream, like a daydream. But it's a big acronym-filled dream, where D is desire. Well, what do you need? And R is reflect. What do you know? And then E is explore. Well, what else could you know? What else could you learn? And then A is acknowledge. And that one is really twofold, because on one hand, it's really important to acknowledge, you know what, you're pretty damn good. You're standing, you're here, you're resilient, you made it this far. But then the other side of it knowledge is, life can really suck. It can really throw bad stuff at you. And you're going to make mistakes. But that's why I love mantra. The M is for mantra. And that's a saying or a song or a prayer or something that sets the mood and encourages you along the way. And so that's what my readers are telling me that they like about the book, is that they're now able to follow a model that helps them access their wisdom, harvest it, and put it into action. And that's transforming lives. And as Rosie says, it's really interesting to me because younger people seem to like the book because they're really looking for role models. They're just desperate to know what to do. And middle-aged people seem to be doing fine with it because, face it, in middle age, you're the sandwich, you're the meat in the middle, and you're getting squeezed on both ends. And then, the older people seem to find something that helps. So it's really all about that dream, that desire, that reflect, that explore, that acknowledge, and that mantra. So that's my spiel. And I'm happy to answer questions or drink or...
What do your children think about yours?
About this book?
Yes, your life, I guess. You said you think
It's been a really good thing for my kids. I don't know that my son's read it. I really don't think so. And my older daughter is going through a period of time of really wanting to be more healthy. And she's divorced, she has a difficult son, and she's really trying. And that's changed our relationship because now she's seeing me as a person, not somebody that should have done this or should have done that or said this wrong or looked at me sideways or whatever. But I mean, she's seeing me as a person. And my second daughter is kind of still, she says that she likes it, but I think she's still in the stage of, yeah, that's mom, she's smart, she can do this, she can do that, and it's not real. They kind of label us institutionally sometimes. That one does.
Did they have a relationship with your mother?
With my mother? Well, that was it. That was what was really rather heart-rending to my oldest daughter because she loved her grandma. And she hated reading about my relationship with her. Yeah. But she got through it. She got through it. And even one of my sisters, well, I only have one sister that's still alive. And she read the book while I was writing it and made comments, wanted to be sure I changed her name. Fine. And then when I published it, she was mad, even though she had approved it. And because she says, I don't want people knowing about our family. But it's your story, Lori, okay.
This may be too personal of a question, please tell me if it is, but was your mother diagnosed with anything?
No, I mean, this is really the way it went, is that my dad, mother, and I went to the psychiatrist after my dad found out that I was considering suicide. I wasn't serious. I mean, I tried to hang myself with a curtain cord while I was laying in bed. I mean, I would say that I was real serious. But he took me to a psychiatrist, and the psychiatrist recommended that he admit my mother. And my dad, being a Greek immigrant, very, very proud, you know how that is, there is no way that he would admit that he had married damaged goods. And so they put me in the hospital to try to learn to deal with my mother. And, I mean, isn't that a statement of that era? I mean, this whole shit about all this stuff about how be good, don't make noise, you know, be good. What does be good mean? Be good means just comply. It has nothing to do with having your voice. It's really a bad thing to be telling kids be good. We should be telling them to be bad. But you know what I mean. And no, so she wasn't diagnosed. In fact, you know, I really believe that when someone's a religious addict, that's probably one of the absolute worst. Because anyway, in our generation, weren't a lot of people that you knew that were devout or would, you know, say this or say that. They were considered good. I mean, that was what you were supposed to be. But no, it's a matter of numbing out. You know, she never took responsibility for her own actions. So,
how's the relationship with your kids, with you now? Do they hold a grudge, or because you're saying you weren't such a good mother?
no, they love that. They love the fact that I said I was a subpar mom. They say, "Oh, go mom, yeah."
Do they hold that against you? Have they?
No, they're getting it now. I mean, they get it.
So they kind of forgiven or whatever?
Yeah, I really would have to say that they have forgiven.
That there was?
They haven't forgotten, but they've forgiven. You know, and
That's helpful.
that's all there is. Yeah, I mean, that's all.
That's helpful.
It's wonderful. Yeah,
Understand it from a different perspective.
they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As adults.
Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I was just curious, there's kind of a section in there, like, when you came out of the, you know, whatever you wanna call it, the nut house or sanatorium, it sounds like there was a period of time of healing and exploration, but then you helped your children to have a relationship with your mom, so did you have some reconciliation or forgiveness, or?
What with my
how-
mother?
Yeah, because you wanted your kids to have that relationship. I'm
Oh,
just kinda curious how that happened.
yeah. Well, by the time I did my inner child work, I was in my 50s. And I think my mother had died by then. You know, had passed on. I would have to sit back and kind of figure out the math. But, no, I never kept my children from my mother. You know, they could have whatever relationship they wanted with her. And even at that time, when I was still in my 30s, and my oldest daughter would have been 7, the fact that she wanted to go to grandma's, I thought that was great, because I thought, you know, it would really be wonderful for her to have a chance to have a relationship. And,
But
you
you
know-
didn't, you kind of had cut ties.
well, you know, I knew that I was gonna end up being the person that I had to kind of save her in the end, because when my dad died, she was left money, and she gave it all to, remember Oral Roberts and Jimmy, who was that guy? Baker.
Yes.
I mean, even when he was in,
Oh, my
even when he was in prison, she was sending money. And then my daughter was over there one day, and she saw that grandma didn't have any food. And Melissa called me up, she's, "Mom, you've gotta do something." And, so, I did. You know, we figured it out and got her organized, and so she ended up having, a good end of life. And, so I feel really good about it. I do. And I realized that, you know, when I was in my early 30s, I intellectually forgave her, but it wasn't until I was in my 50s and doing the personal work that I was able to rid that from my body. You know, where I could just, and it was interesting too, because even in writing the book, I mentioned in here the fact that, you know, I understand why she was how she was. what had caused that. She had her own pathology and her own problems with her mother, and so on and so forth. And we're all just on a journey, and I think that's why my first chapter is titled Winning with the Cards We're Dealt. And I love that title. Remember that Kenny Rogers song? Gotta know when to hold and know when to fold and know when to walk away, whatever. I mean, I just think that's a phenomenal lesson. And you look at these women in the South Omo. I mean, you talk about a bad deck of cards. I mean, women there, I'll tell you how bad it was. When I first went down there, I was the first person that really learned their name. Nobody knew their name. I mean, they were treated worse, and I am not exaggerating, than the baboons in the field. They do all the work. They have the kids. They don't get the right food to eat. They don't have nutrition. They walk miles carrying water. They don't have access to health care. I mean, it's really, really dire. And they're the kindest, wisest people I've ever known. Because you strip all that away. And I think that's really what truly changed my life, is that you really realize what is underneath all the layers and all the trappings and all the supposed to's and everything that we carry on the outside. If you pull all that away, people are good. I mean, I'm not saying that bad, good. And I was taught that the I in the middle of the word sin was the biggest sin of all. That you should never, ever, take credit for anything or feel good about what you do or whatever. And when I lived over there and I worked with these uneducated, unwashed, phenomenally fantastic women, I learned, that the I is really great. It's really great, and we have so much power within us. We really do. And so, when I was 75, I wrote this book. I'm 76 now. I'm on my third career, and my goal now is to help women really access that inner wisdom and find inner peace. Because it's available, but we all have choice. It all comes down to choice. And all of us have choice. Yes, ma'am?
You sort of touched on it, but can you sort of talk a little bit more about all the guilt factor that you were overcoming through your journeys, and even when you went to Ethiopia, the kind of probably inner child guilt that would have been at play, and how you were able to overcome that?
I really want to be frank, because obviously my life is an open book now, right? But I was numb. How I functioned as a high-performing entrepreneur when I had little kids in a crummy marriage in a very, very competitive market. The high-tech market back in those days was a mess. How I functioned was I was numb. The feelings I knew at that point in time was loneliness and a busy mind, and that was it. And that mind was super busy all the time, and otherwise I was numb. So it wasn't until I sold the business and started doing that inner child work that I realized what had happened. And I was just joking with Jan before here. I don't know if it was such a joke, but we were admitting the fact that here at our age, you still run into self-worth issues. I still run into self-worth issues. Because at that cellular level, you know, you've been told that you're unworthy, you're not a person. And even though intellectually you know better, it gets in there. And you know, Patrice, I mean, it's hard to get it out, right?
Yeah, always.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not impossible, but.
no, but it's really hard to get it out. So, it took a lot for me even this past year when I decided, okay, I wrote my book, I'm really proud of it. But what it means is that I'm putting myself out there for who I am, not what I can do. Because man, I can do a lot. And that's what I was known for, is all the doing. But to stand there and just be, that was really scary. And then the other thing that was really scary was to actually say, you know what, I'm wise. I have wisdom to share. And I'll tell you a secret, where the term wisdom elder came to me was AI. I kid you not. I had done a Zoom call with somebody, I don't know who it was, and you know, on Zoom, they give you back an AI summary. And they described me as a wisdom elder. So, there I am. Oh my God, AI says I'm a wisdom elder. Elder wisdom. But it's, you know, it's funny. I kind of got off the track. But I think that's really funny. Yes, Robin.
You know, I found it very interesting as our conversation evolved, thinking back about, you know, evolution in the early 70s, and we women who spent so much time in our careers and trying to raise kids at the same time, and, you know, our children's expectations and our expectations. And during that time, you know, there was a part of us, we were raised, these were the days of women's liberation, so-called, and we thought we could do it all, right? We thought we could be high-powered businesswomen, and we could raise kids, and we could absolutely do it all, which would require basically being superwomen, which we tried to do. And pretty quickly found out it was pretty difficult. I mean, you could do it, but you were like burned out all the time.
Right.
You know, you were working at maximum capacity and, you know, working 12 hours a day and coming home and dealing with little kids and planning for the next day, and husbands that did diddly squat, right? Am I right? Am I right, ladies? And so, you know, it was never really achievable. I mean, we wanted it to be achievable, but without really partnership and a real, you know, team approach to parenting and housekeeping and those kinds of things, that was never really achievable. And it's really unfortunate that, you know, I hope your children and my children, you know, have some understanding for that. You know, in their years, in their adult lives, that, you know, that moms have a hard job.
It really is.
You know.
You know, one of the things that I learned when I was writing my book, because I learned a lot. The third chapter is forgiving yourself and others, and it is really, really hot. Anyway, and forgiving myself, letting yourself off the hook is hard. It's really hard. And I've done it now. I can honestly say I forgive myself, because you know what? I always did my very best, and I really did too much trying to do my real best, but I always did my very best. And it's okay if somebody doesn't get that. It's okay if one of my kids didn't get that, or if they don't forgive me, or they're resentful, or whatever. You know what? That's not my issue. It really isn't. Because I've explained, I've put it out there, and it's their choice. They have the right to make a choice. And so I can't be mad at them. I really don't give myself that right to be mad at them if they're mad at me. Because I want choice, so I need to give them choice. And that's hard, because damn it, I know what's right, you know? But it goes both ways, it goes all those ways, is that, so, and I'm continuing to just learn so much. I can honestly say this is the highest learning period of my life. And it's just so exciting. It really is exciting, being able to meet such wonderful people and have really good, meaningful conversations. You know, it's really cool. What a privilege. So I just want to say thank you so much for coming. And on the table where the book signing is, there are these little dream cards. And feel free to take one if you would like, one that particularly resonates with you or whatever, or take them all or whatever you want. And thank you. Thank you so much for coming.